hello and welcome to this webinar, Creating a Portfolio Management Office for the 2020s. So my name is Steve Beaumont, so I'm the Regional Manager of UK, Ireland and the Nordics for Innova Prime, and I'm joined on this webinar by Marco Battista, who is actually the CEO of Innova Prime, and Marco will be joining in later on and looking at how the software can solve some of the issues that we have today. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you probably next week, early next week, when we've gone through the recording. So please be aware of that, and hopefully you won't have to make too many notes. You'll be able to come back and re-listen to the webinar if necessary. Everyone should be on mute as we go through this session, but if you do have some questions or something you'd like to answer, then please do enter those into the chat area within Zoom, and at the end of the session, hopefully we'll have a little bit of time just to answer one or two questions once we've gone through the presentation. So let's get started, and we'll just move on to the next slide. So yes, is your PMO ready for the challenges of the 2020? You're looking to create a PMO ready for where your business is taking you in this new century. And I think it's worth reflecting on that. The role of the PMO is definitely changing, and have seen it changing over the last few years. I've been operating in this space for far too long, 20+ years or more. And it's obvious now that the PMO really is becoming crucial to allowing the business to really execute on the business strategy and focus on delivering the business outcomes that that strategy requires. Really to make sure that you're sort of growing the business, you're becoming more profitable, you are reaching out to your customers and really delivering what your customers want from your perspective. But I think one of the challenges that PMOs often have is that they sometimes struggle to understand what the expectations of senior management really are. Have you really sort of created the PMO that the business needs to be able to achieve those goals and business outcomes? And are you really implementing the right processes, the right performance measures, the right tools to support how the PMO of the 2020s needs to operate? This can be challenging. And I've seen an awful lot of PMOs struggle to be able to do this, and organizations are really looking at how they can do this better. I think one of the important things is, we talk about PMO. PMO at times has been project management office, maybe it's a program management office. I think critical for going forward is for it to become a portfolio management office. It really does need to elevate itself and become far more strategic in terms of the services that it's delivering to the rest of the business. There's still need for some of the tactical elements, and I'm sure everyone's sort of aware of that in terms of getting control over project delivery, say whether it's projects, whether it's product, whether it's marketing campaigns that are being delivered across the organization. But it really, that strategic element is part of the challenges that seems to be impacting an awful lot of PMOs. And if we move to the next slide, you'll see some of the evidence of this. Now, some of these numbers come out of a survey, the Future of Project Management Global Outlook 2019, that was put together by KPMG, AIPM, and IPMA. I think, we look at this, 40% of organizations use a centralized PMO to coordinate projects. I would hope to see more than that as we go forward, but it's interesting, we're at 40%, but if we look at another stats there, 28% of organizations believe that their centralized PMO are very or extremely effective at supporting and effecting change across the organization. Not really high enough, and that's something that we really need to be able to get up within our organization, to be able to raise that level, so it really is seen to be far more valuable in terms of the service that it's delivering to the business. And one of the real concerning ones I picked out from this was 30% of organizations have disestablished their centralized PMO in the last 2 years. So clearly they weren't delivering what was needed, that they failed. And one of the key reasons there were failures to gain alignment across different parts of the organization. So really coordinating and bringing them in. Now, clearly, a lot of organizations might still have departmental PMOs supporting in more detail at the lower level, more tactical level within that structure. But getting that alignment across the organization and really making sure strategy is being driven by the initiatives and projects, programs that are operating across the organization is really important. And it's disappointing to see that some of these PMOs are actually being disestablished as part of some of that. And the perception, it was a cost overhead. So that goes back to the point, is it really delivering value? You've got to make sure that your PMO of the 2020s is seen to be delivering value for all of the organization. So let's just look at some of this. Let's look at some of the questions that I'd really like you to ask yourself and ask your colleagues when we're looking at PMO within your organization. And I'm going to go into more detail of each of these, but we're going to touch on looking at prioritization. Are you really choosing the right projects, programs, products to invest in to achieve your business goals? Are you duplicating efforts across the organization? And this goes back to this alignment across the whole organization. Over the years, I've seen a number of times where very similar projects are actually being run in different parts of an organization, whether that's different parts of the world or different parts of the structure within an organization, and not getting together and coordinating and using the value of having a joint initiative to be able to deliver something, actually wasting effort on that basis. We'll look at that in a second too. Is there too much change expected in one business area at any one time? They might all be sort of great things to do, but if you overload parts of the business, then that isn't good either. And talking of overloading, are you overloading your most valuable talent? You really need to look at how you manage resources across your organization to get the best value from them. And finally there, can you see the status of the most critical project portfolios? So have you got that top level view? Have the executives got that top level view? And can they react quickly if decisions are needed? If things are going off track or if changes happen in terms of the strategy and the direction, have they really got the visibility that's needed to be able to react to that? So let's drill down into a little bit more detail on those. So if we just move into the first one then. Looking at prioritization, have you really got your business goals clearly defined and communicated? And when I talk to organizations at sort of slightly lower levels, middle management and below within organizations, quite often, if you ask them really what the strategy is, what the business goals are, you get different answers. And that really shows that there is that breakdown in communication. And that communication is critical if you're really going to get alignment, if you're really going to get people focusing on the right things to deliver and the right business outcomes. Do you have clear criteria to evaluate and score projects? Are you using the same criteria across the different projects? Now, clearly in different portfolios, you will have slightly different approaches to this because innovation needs to be treated very differently to some more business as usual or enhancing existing products and so on, or services. But you need to have a proper, clear set of criteria. So within any of those areas that you really are looking at the same value, the same opportunity, the same investment criteria as you go through that. And finally, do you have visibility of all competing demands? If when you're looking at demand, you don't have the complete picture, if you're making those investment decisions, you're not seeing all of the different opportunities to invest in one place, then how can you really make the best decisions? And I think again, that becomes very critical at the top level of an organization when looking at how you're going to fund different parts of the business, fund those initiatives. You've got to have visibility of all that competing demand, because otherwise you're never going to make the right decisions. So let's look at this then. Are you duplicating efforts across the organization? Say, this is what we were talking about. Are different parts of your organizations planning or working on similar initiatives? And again, I've seen lots of organizations, certainly bigger organizations, where if you start to look at, for example, the application landscape, you have got far too many different applications providing the same function within a particular business. And again, that's obviously clearly very wasteful from that perspective. You know, are you rolling out different email systems, ERPs, CRMs, and so on across the organization, where perhaps you should be coordinating that and getting more consistency in terms of what is being delivered? So are there existing systems or solutions already in place? Are you going out and buying and implementing something where elsewhere in the business there's something that you could utilize and save an awful lot of money in terms of doing so, and actually call upon the existing knowledge and expertise in those solutions in another part of the business? And do you have, again, specific knowledge and expertise that you can call upon from that perspective? So really getting that visibility across the whole organization and making sure you're not wasting time and energy when you could be calling upon that, I think, is a critical thing to be asking yourself. Is there too much change expected in the business area at any one time? And I think, again, this goes back to when you're looking at doing the prioritization of the portfolios across their organization. One thing is to really look at things like, you know, what is the return on investment you get? What are the benefits you're going to get out of the different potential projects and initiatives that you're working on? But there's a danger that you're not really getting a properly balanced portfolio. If you're trying to do too much at one time within any one part of the business, then you'll get change fatigue within that organization. If you're going through, you're changing systems, you're changing processes, how much can your people take on board? Make sure that you're not overloading them, and make sure that you're really going to be successful in terms of rollout and adoption of any changes within there by not overloading. Yeah. So you need to look at that bigger picture. You need to make sure you're doing that overall sort of master planning that allows you to see what areas are being impacted, and across any particular time, not too many projects and programs are happening at any one place. So really getting that balanced portfolio does require insight into that bigger picture. And there's a danger it can be hidden in multiple tools if you haven't got this coordinated view. And then we start thinking about the people. And I know there's always a danger that your good people get loaded onto projects and everybody wants them working on the project. So you need to have good visibility of who's working on what, when potentially they become available, that you're not overloading them, that you're not getting burnout in terms of your top people. And you haven't got other people that are being totally underutilized because you're not balancing that properly across the organization. You need to know what else is expected of them. Are they really all available to work on a portfolio of projects or initiatives, or have they got day jobs that get in the way, that get forgotten, and you find again that there's far too much going on within their lives, and it can impact them badly? And then, are you really developing the skills of your people to make sure that they've got what you need going forward? Not just what you have in the past, but really look at your business. Where is it going? What knowledge and experience do you need to bring in? Yes, you might be able to bring in people from outside. Yes, you may be able to use sort of contractors or consultants to supplement your team. But ultimately, you want to make sure you're developing your people as well and building the skills that are really needed for tomorrow's organization, and not just sitting on the knowledge that they have today. And finally, have you got that visibility of your in-flight projects, initiatives, investment in products and services and so on, that you can make decisions quickly when required? You know, do you have that enterprise level view of all your most important initiatives? I don't mean trying to look at absolutely everything that's happening across the organization, but really do look at those top initiatives, the strategic ones that are really driving those business outcomes, and make sure that your senior management can see what's happening in those portfolios. And are they being regularly reviewed? I mean, clearly the days of annual planning hopefully will soon be gone. It's all about continuous improvement. It's all about being able to have a regular cycle of reevaluation of what you're working on to make sure that it is still current, that they are delivering what's necessary, that the strategy hasn't changed, the customer needs haven't changed, that they're not going off track, and you're really funding something that's no longer going to deliver the business benefits that you needed. So you need to make sure that the information is being got to the executives is quality information, it's timely information, that really does support the decisions that they need to make, and understand, for example, whether your customer expectations are changing, and have you reacted to that, and what else is happening in your marketplace? Is there disruption you need to be aware of, and how do you need to react to that? So can you really deliver the business outcomes that you need, not only for today, but really to drive sustainable business success across your organization? So I think there's a lot of questions there, and I think we really do need to make sure that the PMO of the 2020s is structured and operating in a way that really allows you to answer these questions and be really seen as valuable, and we stop hearing of them being disestablished because they're seen to be cost centers and overheads within the organization. So from there, let me hand it over now to Marco, and he can take you through a little bit about how the Governance.Business solution can help answer some of these questions and support organizations that are having over to you, Marco.
Thank you, Steve. So essentially, we have a solution, called Governance.Business, that allows you to address some of the challenges that you've seen and that you've heard from Steve around the PMO for the 2020s. Our platform, our solution basically has a lot of functions and functionality and components to help you address all of those challenges, starting from having a full dashboard and reporting system in order to give you insight on several metrics, several KPIs, and information, valuable information for your organization from your strategic programs, strategic initiatives and projects. From a portfolio perspective, how can I understand all the initiatives that I'm planning to execute, the projects, programs that I'm executing, the assets that I'm maintaining through time, understanding cost-wise, benefit-wise, and also how we're using resources across the organization. So to provide you full insight in terms of all of those KPIs and metrics through this reporting environment. Additionally, other functions that will contribute to all of this type of functionality, we have things like the resource management capability, so you can understand the capacity of your resources in your organization through the several organizations or departments or teams inside your organization. Also understanding how those resources are being allocated and used across the enterprise in the strategic initiatives or in strategic projects, strategic programs, or also in maintaining active assets that you have inside your organization. Additionally, we provide full-scale functionality in terms of project management and program management, so you can execute your projects and programs easily through our solution. So with all the project controls, program controls, controlling financials, controlling benefits, the team that is involved, the several activities that you have planned for the project, and much more around what you can do in terms of project execution. Additionally, we have the task management system, which allows you to define ad hoc tasks that you can then assign to different resources. So if you have certain things that you need to pay attention to, but they aren't, let's say, streamlined as a project or an initiative, you can still use this task management system to do that. Additionally, we have a full knowledge base that allows you to get all your knowledge in one single place around everything related to a portfolio, but also to a project or even to service management activities that you have inside your organization. So you have just one single place where all of this knowledge is gathered, and shared across the enterprise. And then a document management system that allows you to have a consolidated solution for document management shared across the different types of processes that we provide inside this solution. So for example, like you are managing an initiative inside the solution, you have all of your documents of that initiative stored with that initiative, or then you have, or you can have documents shared across the organization. So this document management solution allows you to version those documents, allows you to search inside those documents to make sure that the right persons are the ones that can see or edit those documents inside the organization, so it has full permissions, okay, inside the solution. So these are the base building blocks in terms of functionality, okay, and then on top we have what we call the solutions, okay, that we have also out of the box inside of this platform. Essentially a solution for portfolio management, so you can address all the challenges in terms of portfolio management. So defining a portfolio, executing a portfolio, monitoring a portfolio, making sure that you understand everything related to the portfolios that you have inside the organization, the business goals that you have defined, what kind of activities are you doing aligned with those business goals, what kind of projects, and so on and so forth. Okay. In terms of service management, a full service management solution also for managing everything related to your services, to maintaining and running your services, in terms of a full incident management process, change management, problem management, contract management, service management, and so on, okay, related to everything that you are doing on the service side of your organization. Then in terms of sales management, so if your organization addresses all the sales process, okay, and sell services or other products to externally or even internally, you can then control here all the pipeline from leads to opportunities to managing the accounts that you have, so your customers, understanding everything that you are doing, your customers' financials, KPIs, and so on related to that. Okay, and then the last one, the quality management system, which allows you to manage everything related to quality in terms of requirements, test plans, defects, execution of the test plans, release management across the requirement, the quality part inside of a project, a program, an initiative, an asset, so anywhere in your organization. Okay, so going forward, what we will have right now is a live demo of our solution based on all the challenges that Steve has discussed during this presentation. Okay, so we will go into a live environment of Governance.Business. We will enter with certain profiles, okay, and we'll show you what our solution can do, okay, in order to address those types of challenges. So the solution itself is fully web-based, so it doesn't require anything else than a browser to access the solution. Okay, so in this page is just a demo page that we use in order to select what type of role we want to enter in the solution, and that we want to consume the information inside the solution with. Okay, so in this case, okay, for the discussion that we've been having so far, we will select a portfolio manager to understand what kind of views and controls and monetization possibilities a portfolio manager can have inside Governance.Business. Okay, so let's drill into that. So entering as a portfolio manager in the solution, the first thing that a role can see when he enters in the solution is essentially a set of dashboards, okay, of reports that allow him to consume valuable information, okay, for his role. In this case, for a portfolio manager, there is several types of information that he wants to consume. So in here in this dashboard, we are already seeing, for example, the alignment, the different portfolios that we have in our organization, okay, defined in our organization, and understanding in terms of costs versus benefits, okay, the types of costs and benefits that we have, okay, for each of those portfolios. So these costs and these benefits are driven by the initiatives that we are planning to execute inside that portfolio, for the projects and programs that we are executing inside that portfolio, and for the assets that we are maintaining inside that portfolio. Okay, so in this case, we can see that alignment and also understanding from the overall portfolios, okay, if we are generating more benefits than costs. So here we see that combining all the portfolios, we will see that we have more benefits than costs across the different ones. If we change this view to understanding the same type of perspective, but then looking it from a business goal perspective, so then we see here the different business goals that are defined inside the organization, and then how costs and benefits are planned towards them to understand the kind of things that we will be generating. Okay, then looking further, okay, to a more a view around combining all the initiatives, all the programs, all the projects and assets that we have in the organization, okay, understanding their strategic value or their risk, okay, that we have defined for each of them, okay, and understanding them in a bubble chart so we can, for example, understand all the initiatives that we are planning, okay, so what kind of initiatives do we have, okay, the return of investment of each initiative, the value or the risk, okay, understanding that these ones will provide more value is of course more risk, okay, but there are others that will provide very good value, okay, at a lesser risk, okay, so it's a good way as well to already do some comparison in terms of the initiatives, but then joining that view with the projects that we are running or the assets that we are maintaining or the programs that we are also executing. So having a full combined view on the overall set of portfolios that we have in the organization. Then we also want to focus, okay, on the resources. So understanding resource needs throughout a period of time, combining the capacity perspective with the allocation that already exists in running projects, programs, and assets, and combining that with the initiative needs that we have defined at the level of each of the initiatives, so we understand the type of capacity that would be needed to execute all of them. We will see further down the demonstration how we can do some scenario planning around the portfolio and understand how we can pick certain initiatives and certain projects in order to make sure that we can streamline the execution and planning of a portfolio, okay, to make sure that we are under the capacity, okay, that we have in the organization, so we can really focus on the right things with the capacity that we have. Okay, looking also at that capacity, but then broken down for from a whole perspective, we can then see the different roles and the needs that exist in the organization for the different roles, needs or locations, and the capacity that we have for each of them. Okay, so we see that for certain roles we will have problems, okay, in terms of execution because we don't have enough capacity to execute them all. Okay, so we see that we have some problems that we need to address. Okay, but then this is of course the combined perspective of the portfolio. But then let's look at a split between the definition of the portfolio, so understanding all the initiatives that we have in the organization that can become projects or programs, okay, in terms of execution inside our organization. So let's only focus on the initiatives, and then let's also focus on the execution part, which combines essentially the programs, projects, and assets. Okay, and then from there, let's just look at one portfolio, okay, and also understand from a single portfolio perspective what we can have, okay, and go further from there. Okay, so Governance.Business is of course a solution that offers you a lot of functionality. Here we are of course just monitoring the portfolios. Okay, then we can have other dashboards that allow you to just look at the initiatives or look at the execution of the overall portfolios, and you have much more functionalities under the menu, okay, which we can explain in different that we explain in other webinars as well. Okay, right now we will focus only on these views. So let's look at the ideas and initiatives, and then afterwards on the execution. Okay, so then let's go and see the ideas and initiatives. So in this dashboard, okay, we are basically monitoring everything that we have in terms of the different ideas okay, in the organization. So in terms of ideas, we have something like an idea that somebody has inside the organization that will be discussed, and somebody will take the decision, okay, this makes sense, so let's then derive this to an initiative, okay, and that initiative we will then build a business case, study it further, okay, so we can see if that meets or not the goals of our organization, and if we then afterwards will promote it to a project or a program, okay, based on the kind of execution that we want to have. Okay, so in this case, we are focusing here on understanding ideas that are currently in analysis phase, that are currently just something that was created by the different resources inside the organization. And on the other side, we can see the initiatives aligned with the different business goals that are defined, okay, or initiatives by status, so the ones that are already in the build business case, or some that are new, or others that are already being analyzed on the portfolio perspective. Okay. Then also from these initiatives, we can see the different resource needs that we will have, or that are defined in the overall initiatives. We can then look at those, or then look at the cost versus benefit analysis across the several initiatives. Okay, where we can see that looking at all the initiatives, we will have more benefits than costs. Okay. Or then just looking at all of those initiatives from a bubble chart perspective, so risk versus value versus return of investment, okay, and alignment with the different business goals. So for example, understanding for the business goal, 10% increase in revenue, what kind of initiatives are defined, okay, so we can, let's say, take some decisions and have some insight, okay. But then let's look at one initiative in particular and understand what kind of information we have in that initiative, and also what kind of business case can we do, and so on. Okay, so entering an initiative, okay, so in this customer survey system, so we basically have different information that we are gathering in terms of the initiative. So first of all, we are gathering information on the name of the initiative, some description, the alignment with business goals, with portfolios, what kind of goals the initiative has, okay, so some descriptions, also the contacts that are related to this initiative, so the sponsors, the participant units, so organization units that will participate in this initiative or are supporting this initiative, okay, the responsible units that will drive this initiative, the PMO assignee. Also then in terms of categorization, okay, what type of project it will be, the categorization of the project, what type of region will be, okay. And then one thing that is also critical to understand how we can compare this initiative with others from a perspective of strategic scores, so strategic value and risk value or risk scoring, okay. We have then a scoring model which allows the organization to answer a set of questions related to some strategic perspectives, so return of investment, so selecting, for example, what type of return of investment are we talking about, intangible benefits, business risk, revenue, productivity. So basically a questionnaire, so we can then, based on that questionnaire, understand what type of strategic value score we will have based on the answers to those questions, and the risk score that we will have based on the answers to those questions. This will allow us to, of course, see then this type of initiative compared with others, okay, across these types of metrics, okay. So we can then use this to take decisions, okay, what is the best fit for the organization, what will provide the best thing for our organization from a strategic perspective. But then we also want to combine that information with costs, benefits, and team forecasts. So the resource needs that we will have for this initiative in order to execute it through a project or a program, for example, okay, or the types of costs or benefits that we will have, okay, for this initiative. So, and if we enter in the cost perspective, we will then see what type of costs we have estimated and lines of those costs for these initiatives through the different years, or also focusing on the benefits, what kind of benefits are we expecting to have, okay, for the different years for this initiative. So when we promote it to a project, understand what we really need. Or then understand, for example, the resources that we will need, okay, to execute this this initiative, okay. But one of the most important things also on the initiative process, okay, is essentially the process that streamlines the different decisions that are needed, okay, in order to promote this to a project or a program in the end. So in the end, we have, let's say, a process, okay, that is configurable in the solution, okay, to address and to make sure that we capture all the decisions that are important, okay, in order to take this initiative forward. So initiative review, build business case, doing a portfolio analysis, and from this deciding if we go or no go for this initiative. Okay, so in the end we can capture who has done what at what time, so the decision that was taken by whom and how much time it took. Okay, so we can have a full auditable process, okay, on the solution. Okay, so jumping from those initiatives and going back to the portfolio. Okay, so then we've seen already the overall portfolio, focusing on only the initiatives and ideas. Let's then look at the execution perspective of the portfolio. So focusing on the execution, okay, what we are seeing here is essentially all the projects and indicators of all of those projects that we have right now in the organization, okay, across all the portfolios. So here we see several indicators in terms of the global health of the project, or the schedule health of that project, or a cost health, resource issue, risk. Also then numbers in terms of plan versus actual costs, plan versus actual benefits, okay, so for the different projects, okay. Also, we can then see, for example, the resource plan versus actual, so the resources that are planned, okay, across the different projects, and how many resources we need, or hours that we need from those resources. In this case, we are focusing this view in terms of role, okay, and then we are also focusing this in terms of capacity versus allocated effort versus forecast effort included in each of those projects, okay. Or then looking also at the bubble chart, just focusing on the projects themselves, seeing in terms of risk versus strategic value, alignment with business goals. So understanding what type of projects are we doing towards the business goal, 10% increase in revenue. Okay, so we can see that easily here in the bubble chart. Of course, we could enter in the business goal, 10% increase in revenue, and see it from there. So see all of that information. We will come that in a moment. So let's focus then on the perspective of looking at what we have in terms of a project. Okay, so let's look at this cloud optimization project, okay, which is currently red, okay, and let's drill down and understand why it's red, okay. So drilling down into the project, we have several information related to the project itself, okay. So the first thing is the project status, okay, so a dashboard which will show me the status of the project, or then dashboards that will focus only on financials, or controls, or resources, or needed approvals. Okay, so in this case, we see that our schedule is yellow, okay, our cost is yellow, resources are green, but then we have here issues and risks that are red. And that's why the global health indicator of the project is currently red. Why? Because we have issues, high priority issues that are affecting the project immediately and haven't been addressed to their due dates, and risks that haven't been managed properly, okay? And in that case, those indicators plus the yellow indicator of the schedule is affecting the global health, which is giving a red indicator, okay? So let's look at also the financials. So let's look at how we see the financial perspective of the project, okay? So here we can see a combination, okay, in a tabular format of the indicator of the cost, and then some numbers, real numbers in terms of planned cost, actual cost, benefit, and actual benefit, so a sum. But then we can see also a split per month, for example, okay? Or then just looking at plan versus actual cost per month as well, or plan versus actual benefit per month. So seeing the realization of the costs or realization of the benefits across this project. But then on the project itself, we also have a form which allows us to get all the information of the project, okay? So to track all the information that we have, including a scoring model, okay? Which we will use, of course, in the portfolio scenario in order to also combine or compare this project with other things, okay? We track all costs and benefits related to this project, so combining all the detailed lines of this project, project costs, okay? So all the budget is included here in the solution, okay? Across the different months, split by the different types of costs that we have, okay? And also tracking of the benefits in a detailed way, the same way in terms of months versus the different types of benefits. Then aside from that, we have a full view on the team that is currently working in this project, the hours that have been planned, the actual effort for each of those resources, okay? And also doing the activity tracking in terms of having a full Gantt chart in the solution that you can basically use in order to plan your project easily. So we can really create more tasks easily. We can just go back and forth with our tasks, okay? So we can plan that very easily in the solution, seeing critical paths, for example, okay, in the solution, or many other things, okay, across this Gantt chart, okay, which allows you to plan and to also create baselines on the planning and so on, so you can compare it later on, okay? Aside from that, we have, like I said, the document management solution, which allows you to track all documents inside a certain process. So in this case, organized by folders. Inside each of the folders, then you have the different documents which are versioned, which you can then do document search across all the documents. So you can search for things inside those documents. You can basically see the details, see the different versions, see who can create, define those creations and so on. Aside from that, we also have then issues, risks, scope changes, status reports, also the defects, releases, requirements, test plans, test runs that are, let's say, connected and aligned with this project. So we have a full base of things in order to make sure that you are managing the project correctly and that you have all the controls in place that you can use in order to have all of that perspective, okay? And then, again, on the project itself, you also have a process in order to make sure that you take the right decisions, or that the decisions are taken by the right personas, okay, inside your organization for each of those projects, okay? So going back to our perspective on the portfolio analysis, so we've shown the overall portfolios, we've shown just focused on the initiatives, just focused on the projects, okay, or in the execution perspective. But then let's look at one portfolio in particular, okay? So looking, for example, at this sales and marketing. So we can just use either the possibility of searching information or drill down on the graphic, or the most common one is really using this search that we have here on top. So here we have sales and marketing, okay? So let's look at this portfolio in particular, okay? So here we are on the portfolio sales and marketing, okay? Which has, let's say, some information on the portfolio itself, the parent portfolio, the portfolio manager, and so on, okay? But we are mostly interested in understanding a full overview of the portfolio, okay? Just for the things that are included only inside this portfolio, okay? So overall, in terms of combining all the initiatives, projects, programs, and assets, focusing only on planning or focusing only on execution. So in here, we are looking only inside a certain portfolio, okay? So let's do that, okay? In this case, I'm going to also open the other ones, okay? So it will be quicker to see all the information, okay? So in this case, we can then analyze from a perspective of time, okay, all the costs that we have and benefits just for this portfolio, which combine everything related to all the initiatives, okay, and all the projects and so on. We can also see the resources that we will have, that we will need in order to execute all the initiatives and projects included in this portfolio, which we see that we have enough capacity to do that, okay, inside the organization. Or then we can take a look at only the initiatives, seeing all the initiatives that we have just for this portfolio, the alignment with the different business goals that we have, okay, or looking only at financials, or looking at resource needs across the different, okay, months, okay, that we have. Or just monitor the execution of all the projects, okay, that we have for, I'm going to just reduce this to a view of 10, okay. So seeing all the indicators of all the projects that we are running inside this portfolio, seeing all of the indicators of those projects, okay, and then focusing on cost versus benefits, plan versus actual cost, realization of benefits, or then seeing the planned resources versus actual usage of those resources. So essentially we can either monitor everything from a full organization or just focus in one single portfolio. But this doesn't answer all the questions or all the things that Steve has mentioned in the slides, so during the presentation. So there are things that we still want to do. We want to do running a scenario analysis, okay, in our portfolio. So understanding of all the, having an understanding of all the initiatives that we have, all the projects that we are running, programs that we are running, or assets that we are running. So compare them to each other and trying to balance that, okay, to make sure that we have the right resources in place, that we are below the capacity, okay, of our resources, and also that we can put some constraints in terms of budget and so on. Okay, so for that we can use a scenario comparison that we have in our solution. Okay, so I will call it, or I will just look at this demo scenario 2019. Okay, so this portfolio plan scenario. And then focusing on this portfolio scenario, so entering in that, what we will see is the title of that scenario, understanding the timeline, okay, of that scenario, running from the 1st of January to the 31st of December of 2020, so including 2 years. And then we are defining 3 scenarios. Okay, so one which we call the must do. So in this case, of course, the definition was done by us, okay, while we have created this scenario. So the must do, which we are defining as all the projects, all the running projects, programs, and assets that we have on the organization. So those are the ones that are running, and I want to make sure that we are including those. Okay. Second scenario is I want to include all of those projects that are in execution, plus some strategic initiatives. And the third scenario is I want to include everything that we have inside this portfolio. Okay. Then the content comes from the portfolio itself. Okay. And then we are imposing some constraints. Some constraints are essentially the resource constraints. So saying that the resource capacity will come from all of these organization units. So all the resources that are inside these organization units, okay? And then we've also imposed a cost constraint. So a budget that we have, okay, for this year, 2020, okay? So we can understand if the portfolio, if the content that we are selecting for each of the scenarios is within this budget constraint. And then the other part is essentially the entities that are inside this portfolio. So all the assets, initiatives, projects, and so on that we have inside this portfolio that are aligned with this portfolio. Okay, so in that case, based on those, we are selecting if they are going to be included or not in scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3. And then that selection can be based on different KPIs. Okay, so of course what we said is everything that is a project needs to be included in scenario 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so that's why that if we select everything that is a project, okay, we see that everything that is a project is included in scenario 1, 2, and 3. Okay, but then we also said that all the initiatives, okay, we want to based on only the strategic initiatives, and then we can use the planned return of investment, okay, or the value score and the risk score to identify the ones that the most strategic initiatives that we have that we want to include or not in our scenario 2 and 3. Okay, so in this case, this is a strategic initiative, or then look at from a value score perspective. Okay, so all the initiatives that are the most valuable ones to the organization from a strategic perspective. Okay, so based on this type of decisions, which we can automate to make sure that the tool will select the best scenario for you based on the constraints that you impose, okay, we then provide an overview. Okay, so I'm just going to open this in different tabs, okay, so we can then see it. So we provide an overview of comparing the must-do scenario with the must-do plus strategic initiatives and the all scenario to understand already from a bubble chart perspective what we are including in one, the other, and the other, aligned with the different business goals. Okay, so we can already do some analysis here from a strategic perspective, the ones that are providing us the most value in terms of all the projects that are running, or combining running projects with initiatives, also seeing the variables in terms of business goals. Or then look at resource constraints. Okay, so understanding from a must-do scenario the capacity that I have to spend, the type of allocations that we have across the different projects, okay, or looking at that from a must-do plus strategic initiatives, which we then see all the projects that are the allocated effort, plus the initiatives that are representing forecast effort, which means that we are way over the capacity line, so we won't be able to execute them all with the current capacity. Okay, and here we have some slight glitches, okay, that we will drill down in a minute to understand what's happening, okay, or then here where we are including everything, which we are way above the capacity line. So there's no way that we can do all of those things, okay. So, but let's look at one certain month in particular, so understand from a whole perspective and so on, what is really the data behind that, okay? So let's look at March, for example, 2020, okay? And in that case, we will then see from a capacity standpoint, in terms of the capacity that we have for each of the roles that are mostly demanded in this month, okay? And then seeing also from resource utilization, so allocation of real resources, all the resources that are being used, okay, and most possibly capacity that we don't have, but we still are trying to use them, so like Clifford Hawkins, for example, or then seeing what type of projects, okay, we have for this. I'm just going to seeing what type of projects and what type of roles do we need, and in terms of hours for each of for this month in particular, so for March 2020. So it's very easy for us to drill down and understand everything that is needed. So if we wanted to drill down into Clifford right now, we would be able to see the things that Clifford is working on, the type of allocations he has, okay, and so on and so forth, to make sure that we have full visibility on everything, okay? Aside from that resource perspective on the scenario, we also have the perspective of the budget itself. So looking at what we have defined in terms of budget capacity for 2020, looking at the planned cost that we have for 2020 for the scenario must do, we see that we have more needs in January, but then we have less needs in the overall months to come, which in this case, okay, we can execute the scenario like it is, okay? But if we look at what we have in terms of these strategic initiatives plus the must do, we see that it's very tight for the several months, okay, in 2020, and for sure we won't be able to execute this inside the budget constraint that we have, okay? Or then looking at this scenario where we include everything, okay, we see that we have real problems, okay, that we won't be able to execute everything that we have. We are way over the line, okay, in terms of cost, okay? So with all of these indicators, we can then either balance our portfolio manually, okay, by selecting to include different contents in the different scenarios, okay, or of course automate all of this to make sure that the tool will provide you with the best fit scenario, okay, just using actions to do that inside your workflow, for example, to make sure that the tool does the work for you and you just see if you want to tweak here and there based on the scenarios that it proposes, okay? So by this, I will basically finalize the presentation or the demonstration here. Is basically to give you an overview of the capabilities of our solution in order to address all of those challenges that Steve has mentioned, okay, and how we can make all of these processes work inside the organization and provide you the full visibility that you need in order to take the right decisions. So thank you all. So I'm going to then kick it back again to Steve, okay? And Steve, it's up to you
Marco.
now.
Thank you. Excellent. That was very good. Excellent presentation there, and I think it really did show the breadth of functionality and the power that there is within a system like this. Clearly, it needs to be recognized that for different organizations with different levels of maturity, then perhaps you would roll some of this functionality out over time rather than trying to implement the whole application in one go. But
Yes.
It really does show you've got a tool there that allows you to build and grow, and as you become more mature, that it will support you through that process as well. It's one that you can use today, but also will provide a lot of value into the future. Conscious that we are now running out of time. I had a couple of questions. Richard, maybe I'll follow up with you later on some of this discussion. It would be good to catch up anyway. So let's do that after the presentation. But hopefully you can see, I mean, I really do think that we think about the role of the PMO going forward, how it needs to become more strategic, how it needs to really be seen to provide the services and the value to the business that will justify its existence, that it really will drive the business outcomes that will help the business to succeed and say achieve that sustainable growth and profitability going forward. So thank you everyone for joining us on this webinar. As I did mention at the start, it has been recorded. That recording will be shared with you probably next week now, given that we're Thursday, so probably at some point next week that will be shared with you, so you can go and review some of it again if that will be useful. If you do have any other follow-up and questions, Marco, could you just take us back to the PowerPoint, just so that when they look at this, they will actually see, if we just move down a couple there, you've actually got the email addresses for both Marco and myself. So please do use that if you have got some follow-up questions. I'd love to hear from you, and enjoy the rest of your day. So thank you everyone very much, and goodbye.